Hey everybody, I'm Drew with Universal Audio, and welcome to another UAD Spotlight. In this video, I'm going to cover another highly requested topic, and that is mixing acoustic guitars. So let's dive right in, and let me tell you a little bit about the session that I've chosen for this video. It's something I recorded here at the studio a few years ago, and it has a mixture of single mic'd, single tracked, finger plucked guitar, which can be a little difficult, and double mic'd, double tracked, strummy guitar. And so it's a good mix of two different acoustic approaches. So let's take a quick look at the session. And if you look at the top track, it's the purple finger plucked guitar. And the four red tracks are the multi-mic'd, double tracked, strummy guitar. So let me turn off all processing so that we're hearing just the raw tracking, and give a listen to maybe 10 seconds of the finger plucked into about 10 seconds of the strummy guitar so that you can see what we're starting with. So they don't sound terrible, and the strummy guitars are actually in pretty good shape. They'll need a little bit of love. So let's focus our attention on the purple single tracked finger plucked guitar. I'm gonna walk you through the chain and tell you why I did each thing, and then we'll get to some listening. So the first plugin in the chain is the Massenburg DesignWorks 5-band EQ. This is my go-to surgical corrective EQ. And for the primary reason being that it has this really cool ISO peak feature. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If you look at each band, they all have a colored, numbered button at the bottom that when you click it, it turns that band temporarily into a boost-only, narrow, peaking type filter that allows you to sweep around and find frequencies that you don't want. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So I like to think of this as a magnifying glass, and it allows you to find the frequencies that you really dislike. And in this case, the one I landed on was 163 hertz. And I did the same thing again over here, and I found another one I didn't like, which was 806. That's kind of that sort of nasally, kind of honky mid-range. And then I also did a preemptive high-pass filter at 61 hertz, just to make sure any rumble didn't make it through. Now you'll notice with two mid-range cuts like that are fairly deep, you'll lose a lot of level. So I also compensated by upping the input level by 4 dB so that I can get a proper AB. Now we're gonna listen to that in a second, but let me walk you through the rest of the chain first, and then we'll do some listening. So next up in the chain is the Studer 800. I put this on pretty much everything. In this case, I chose GP9, which is a modern formulation. We are at 15 inches per second, so it'll be adding a very little bit of subtle tape saturation. After that is the UA 610A preamp EQ. I'm not using it as an EQ this time, but I am using it as a slight saturator. I really like the way it glues together the mid-range. It just makes things sort of more harmonically dense in a great way. And lastly is the Oxford Dynamic EQ. I've got two bands going here. Band 4 is handling abrasive high frequencies, and it's gonna grab some of the finger squeaks and mellow them out a little bit. And then band number 1 here is doing an overall low end level control. I don't wanna just EQ out the bottom end. I only want it to go away when there is too much. Now, let's go ahead, and now that I've walked you through it, let me hit play and let me add each one incrementally into the signal chain. So it doesn't sound like I did a lot, but let me do another playback with everything on and then halfway through, turn it off. And I think you'll be surprised. So it's quite a difference when you hear that A-B of all of them on and then all of them off. Okay, so I now am pretty happy with my insert chain. Let's talk about send and return time-based effects. So I've got two things going here. I've got my trusty Ocean Way Studios, and in this case, we're using Studio A, and we're using the guitar, and I just am using the mid-range mic, which is 12.8 feet away. And I've got the high pass filter on that mic. And in addition to that, I also am using the master EQ to pull out even more bottom end. I don't want this to get tubby or add any low end to it. So let me solo up this guitar and we'll start with it off and we'll add it partway through. So for those of you listening on good headphones or good speakers, that mono guitar just got wider and got more front to back depth. If you're listening on your phone, probably didn't hear a whole lot. Okay, so let me add one more effect here, and it's another one of my favorite reverbs, which is the EMT 140 plate. I'm using plate A, which is my favorite. It's pretty long, about 3.5 seconds, and I've got the input filter set to 360. So again, making sure this does not add rumble. Let's start with it off and then we'll add it on. So that's adding that beautiful metallic shimmer that only a plate can do. Okay, so feeling really good about the finger-picked guitar. Let's move on to the strummy guitars. So for these guitars, it's a totally different approach. They're double mic'd, they're double tracked, and the player has switched to a pick. So let me walk you through the processing that I chose, and let's start with the extensions. So I'm using the Luna Studer extension across all 4 of the individual mics. And I'm just using the default 456, 15 inches per second. It's a classic combination. That's gonna handle each of the mics individually, give them each a little bit of color before I run them into a subgroup. And on that subgroup, I have the API summing and I have the headroom screw all the way up to drive it in a little bit more and get a little bit more coloration. So let me start by turning the extensions off, the tape and the summing, and then we'll listen to that A-B on, off, on, off. Okay, so next up, let's walk through the insert chain that I have on this subgroup master. So again, I'm starting with the Massenburg 5-band EQ. I have a high pass at 57 Hertz, again, just to get rid of rumble. And in this case, I added a dB at 98 just to make sure they stayed fuller. They're playing with a pick now. It's a different low end structure, although that same 163 Hertz sort of area, I still wanted to clean up a little bit. So we have a similar but slightly different EQ setting there. And then I'm using A type after the EQ. And in this case, I am using the air mode. And you'll notice how little I'm using on that mix control. Air mode a little bit goes a long way. And then lastly, we have one of my favorites, the UA 176. It has mild tube coloration, but it has fast attack. so it grabs transients. It's great at gluing things together in a clean way, and it's almost impossible to make it sound bad. So let's do a similar thing. I've got all three of these off. I'll hit play. We'll bring them in one at a time. So not a huge transformation, but meaningful changes. And since I did it incrementally, it's a little bit hard to tell. So let's do one final A/B with all the extensions and bus processing off and then on. Okay, so the last piece here is to add the same effects to the strumming guitars as I have on the finger plucked guitars to kind of tie them together. So let's listen to that with them off, and then I'll add them in. Man, I really love what that plate added to the strumming guitars. So let's do one final listen to both the finger plucked and strumming guitars together with their processing. And on the strumming guitars, I'm gonna add in the bass guitar and a little guitar overdub so that you get a feel for the finished product. So I hope this video has given you some ideas and strategies to try the next time you're mixing acoustic guitars. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell button so you're notified of all new UA content. And be sure to tell me in the comments what you'd like me to cover in the next video. The next video could be your topic. I'll see you next time.